I think that there is a lot of confusion around accessibility, around inclusive design, around a universal design. I think that there is kind of this lack of clarity of not only what it means, but also what exactly do we do with this. It's always going to be a conversation around color contrast. It's always going to be a conversation about font sizes, and it's also going to be a conversation about tab targets. And these are important conversations to have. But these are just a kind of very small portion, a very, very small portion of a much broader picture. And it often feels like accessibility is seen as a compliance checklist. It is not, because ultimately, it's not about just being compliant. We are designers, right? So we want to design a good experience for as many people as we can. That's kind of what we do. And in fact, if we think about what it really is, it's kind of an effort, right, to keep a digital experience meaningful and usable. And I think both of them are important, and both of them go beyond compliance, right? Because when I think about meaningful, it actually must do something that a person understands, that a person can deal with, right? And that also reflects in this kind of functional reliability. It must be usable, because if it's something is compliant, it doesn't mean that somebody can have a very good experience with it. These are different things. And another conversations I keep having over and over and over again when it comes to accessibility is the notion of, well, it's catering to edge cases, right? Or it's catering, to all the cases which go beyond our average users. And these are strange conversations to have, to be honest, as well. Because people are no edge cases. They are just people, and they're different people. They come with different needs, with different views of the world, with different conditions, with different situations. So we couldn't just dismiss some people because they're different as edge cases. That feels wrong on many, many, many different levels. That's just weird. And on the other hand, there is no average user. Like, those things don't exist, because average user is just an accumulation, or average of an accumulation of all the different types of users that we have, right? And that person doesn't really exist. Very often it doesn't exist. It might be representative for a wider group of people, right? But very often average users don't exist, right? So for me, again, it's something like an effort to keep things meaningful, right? And do the right thing, do the design work, right? But on the other hand, I often want to kind of mention that when we actually start designing and building, if you look at the blank canvas, right, and you just put text in it, and if you look into wireframes that we're creating, or maybe low fidelity mockups or so, right, very often we might not be considering accessibility there, which is of course a problem. But the issue is, whenever you start building, right, whenever you start designing, we start with accessibility. We don't want the text to be illegible, right? We want it to just work. And on the other hand, when we think about accessibility, it's not just something that we need to add. It's just something we need to retain. And I really like this quote by Scott Jehl from many, many years ago. And he said that it is not something we add to a website, but something we start with initially and risk losing with every single change that we make. So our task as designers is to retain it throughout the entire design process. When you see your management speaking, or your clients or whoever speaking about accessibility or inclusive design or universal design, you just want to make sure that you're speaking about the same things, right? Because accessible design usually, well, historically, has been all around aiming for equal access for people with disabilities, right? But then inclusive design is beyond that. It goes beyond that. It not only aims for equal access for people with disabilities, but it's also about meeting the needs of diverse users, that people who diverse in age, in skills, in gender, in culture, in their mental abilities, in their mental state, right? And so on and so forth. So it kind of goes beyond the notion of people with disabilities alone. This is where temporary disabilities could play a role, right? Or situational disabilities as well. And then there is also a notion of universal design, which is a bit detached from the rest. Because universal design usually is, you want to create one single solution, right? That works for everyone, full stop. Just everyone, full stop. So you don't, instead of customizing and creating a version for blind people, right, and a version for people who are relying on keyboard, you're just creating an experience that works for everyone.